Hey guys, my name's Kevitt. I'm doing a build-up of a 54 Willys pickup and kind of midway through the process, so I thought I'd start documenting as I move forward. I've had the truck 32 years and been sitting for about 18, and so I started working on it again about 6 months ago, and I'll start detailing and showing what I've got so far. Okay, so this is where I'm currently at. About 6 months into this rebuild. It was a cab off, frame off uh, rebuild. However, I didn't really go through and do a lot of detail. I'm not a super custom car guy. I do things out of my garage. But did the best I could with the limited funds that I have to get it to this point. So I redid the urethane bushings under the cab and reset the cab on the frame. Got the tires just a few months ago. It's been sitting on jack stands literally for 18 years. So I got it back on its feet. Starting at the back here, I've got new leaf springs. I re-welded the mounts. These are off a Toyota SR5 pickup. Just a little half-ton pickup. This truck was originally a military 1-ton ammunition hauler, 1954 Willys. And didn't like the way it rode because it rode really harsh with the 1-ton springs, so I changed all that. Going back to the front, I just added a double shock hoop. It's actually been on the truck for several years, but never actually put the shocks on it. Got that done. It's 350 Chevy with a Turbo 400 transmission, Dana 44 front axle with disc brakes. I did all of this kind of stuff actually literally over the last 30 years. This truck was a running vehicle that I used for work for about 10 years, and then I parked it. And again, I've had it for about 32 years, I think. So what else? We got Dana 20 transfer case, so it is 4-wheel drive. I've got to get a drive shaft made for it. But some of the things I've done in the last 6 months just to get started back on the project was the motor was sitting in the frame already, which we put in about 8 years ago. I installed a little bit of an RB cam, give it a little performance, put the headers on it and everything. I did all that about 8 years ago. This was a motor swap out of my son's Chevelle that we were building, and we ended up putting a 383 stroker motor in that. So this 350 went into the Willys and has been sitting for quite a while. I put rack and pinion steering in it. This is actually out of a Ford Ranger, and I did a lot of gusseting and things to kind of bracket it, get it to sit in there properly, and did all the welding myself, so nothing's pretty, but it should be strong and functional. And I originally put a Toyota Tundra rack and pinion in it, but it was too wide, and the tie rod ends became too short and it wouldn't work. So with the Ranger front end, which I believe is similar to a Mustang 2 front end rack and pinion that a lot of guys use, I think this will work fine now. So I've got that installed. I just actually got my power steering lines today. I'll be hooking up the power steering pump to the rack and pinion. Put the electric fan on, put aluminum radiator in it over the last month. Got some super bright white headlights for it with the halo ring around it, so I can flip those on separately. It'll have a little bit of a distinct halo look if I just want to run those during the daytime. Did all this chrome work to the grill actually about 8 years ago. Did some other, actually quite a bit of other chrome work I'll show you as we go into the cab. And the cab's literally never been painted in the entire 32 years I've owned it. It's been primer gray for 32 years. I bought the truck for $600 in somewhere around 1983 or something like that. I was back in my 20s. So some of the other things I did, I'll open this up. I had a tilt steering column in it, which I'm just going to leave for now. This came out of a Cadillac years and years ago when I first got the truck. So it's just a really old 1970 something Cadillac tilt steering column. And just put in my new gas pedal and brake pads a couple nights ago. I did a really terrible job on the carpet. It's basically a Home Depot walkway carpet that I just threw in there for now until I finish the truck and maybe want to do a better job later. Seats are actually out of my daughter's old 1997 Neon car, Dodge car. They're very comfortable though, and I like them, so I'm thinking I'm just going to get them recovered. They fit the truck really well. They hold you in place with the way they get these side wings on there, and thought it'd be pretty good for off-roading. Basically built the roll cage for this. This roll cage came from one of those Ranger ATV vehicles. I chopped it up, cut it down, and welded it all together and made it fit into the cab. It's basically almost like a mini truck cab. Here I've got the gauges set in place that are actually going to be functionable, which is the Bosch gauges you see here, and the tachometer. All the other things you see here, this hole in the middle is where the speedometer goes, and that's been sent to the chrome shop, and the original gauges went here. They are not going to function because they are 6-volt and no longer useful, but I'm going to put them back in and have the trims around them chromed, and that'll look really nice just for kind of that nostalgic look. And I chromed the glove box door. It's got the vintage Willys ID tag on it, I guess you'd call it, for the nostalgic look. It says it's a 1-ton 4x4 Willys, and it was a arms supply vehicle. Be another chrome glove box door goes here. It's going to house the stereo unit, so that will be going in soon. I got the door panels made, just some cheap, inexpensive door panels I made myself, and they're sitting there on the back of the truck. Actually, I'm not putting those in yet until I get the glass back in the truck, which I have all new glass made. And it's sitting back here somewhere. I'm not going to put the glass in until I get the cab painted. I'm going to start by painting the cab. And there's not a lot of cancer or anything bad on it. Just got a lot of scratches, dings, and wear over the years. Actually, I had to drill this hole out to get my seat belt bracket out of there so I could replace it with a new one. I couldn't get in there for some reason with a wrench to remove that, so I thought I'm just going to drill a hole, tear it out, and I'll weld that back up. Put in this overhead console. As you can see, I've got my fuel gauge here. I'm adding a auxiliary fuel gauge up here, tranny temperature, and I've got water temp, oil pressure, and volts. Here I've got my Dana 20 transfer case with the boot installed. Just did that a few nights ago. I got all the fuse block and a lot of rough wiring going on. The wiring's probably maybe 75% done. I've got it all tagged to where it's all going, and I'll need to add a little bit more, but it's getting there. I've got a B&M mega shifter going here that I'm not quite finished with yet. Just did a cheesy headliner for now, and up here I got some LED lights that'll light it up pretty nice. Plus I've got the original glass domed dome light that came with the truck, which it would be really hard to find that. It's actually made out of glass, so it's kind of nostalgic. I'm going to put that back in too. The bed's off the truck. It's actually sitting on the driveway over here, and I got a lot of plans for that. That's going to go back on. Some of the things I'm going to be doing that just real in the rough stages right now, but just to give you an idea where I'm at, is I got a fuel cell here that I'll be mounting towards the front of the bed. And these are the window trims that are going to go around the windows. I decided to do kind of a lollipop red, or candy apple red, some people might call it, to highlight the window trims that go on the inside of the doors. Auxiliary fuel tanks in the back here, which that was my original fuel tank. I had two of them, one in front of the axle and one behind, but when I put on the new leaf springs, it dropped the frame down too low that the differential would have been hitting, the drive shaft would have been hitting the gas tank. So I decided to just take one out, move one to the back, and install a fuel cell in the bed so it looks good. I'm going to put a bed rack for a spare tire mount and shock mounts going through the bed. Kind of give it a little bit of a pre-runner look, although it's not really going to be used a lot off-road. At 62 years old in its life, the frame's pretty fatigued. Had a few cracks in it over the years and had to weld it up. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. The battery will go on the bed. The transmission lines are going to go to the bed, and I'm going to mount these blue transmission coolers on the bed bar. So that'll look kind of neat. I thought it almost looks like the shocks reserve things you put on the shock bars, but they won't be. They'll be actually for the transmission to cool the fluid. So my idea was with the new radiator installed, which came with these fittings down here for a transmission cooler to run the lines to your transmission. I decided one of the things they did on these Ford Ranger rack and pinions was they actually ran a little small cooler down here, and I thought, well, you know what, I could actually do a power steering cooler for that, which might be handy to have if I'm out roading and get things kind of warmed up. So I'm actually going to run the rack and pinion power steering cooler will become the transmission, or I'm sorry, the radiator inlet here that would have been for the transmission, since I'm mounting the coolers for that in the back. So I thought that's kind of a neat idea. Just take advantage of the radiator and use that to cool the rack and pinion. Can't think of much else right now. It's got a Edelbrock manifold, Edelbrock carburetor, nickel-plated headers. I've had these wheels. They're really dirty now, but these are the old wagon wheels that came originally on the truck 30 years ago. They were rusty and pitted and just falling apart, sitting out in the backyard for a number of years. I took them down to the chrome shop, and they said they couldn't re-chrome them because there was too much rust. So, but he said, well, I can powder coat them, and so I did that. I went with a what they call a dull chrome powder coat finish, so they almost look like aluminum because it's kind of just a dull shine. And you know, they are what they are. They're not super expensive wheels, and I didn't want to go buy new ones at this point, so for a couple $100 I get these cleaned up, ready to rock and roll with my new tires. So and a couple other things I thought I'd mention was I installed this tranny dipstick flexible line to the transmission because I actually did all this aluminum. Doesn't look great, but I did all that about 8 years ago, kind of getting things prepped for the cab. But when I did that, I brought out the aluminum so far, and with my spark plug wires and everything here, I couldn't relocate the tranny dipstick tube where it originally bolted to the bell housing and came up somewhere in this location. There was no room for it, so I had to go with a flexible one, and cost a little bit more money, but it'll look kind of neat sitting there, sticking out. Also, one of my prized possessions that kind of cheesy and yet nostalgic for me, being that I'm turning 58 this year, and I made this when I was about 27, is this, believe it or not, it's actually a Chevy bow tie rear bumper that I made about 30 years ago. And I welded this out of just steel pipe from a job site. I'm in construction, so I found some steel on a job and welded some caps on the ends, cut the angle for the bow tie look, and welded that all together about 30 years ago. Put a trailer hitch receiver in it. And I can't really get a good video of it because I'm standing against my workbench. There's no room, so just wanted to show that for now. And what I did was, this also was sitting in the backyard rusting away for about 18 years. It was completely super pitted with rust, and I might do some before and after pictures of it eventually, but I took it down to the chrome shop. They couldn't do anything with it. The guy said, well, why don't you do a whatever they call that, a wrinkled finish powder coat. So I mean, this is like one of the worst spots you'll see right here, is where it's got some pitting from rust, but really, I mean, they did an excellent job powder coating that. I think it was about $100. and brought that thing back to life. And I thought, well, now I got to put it back on the truck, because it's just kind of cool that I made that 30 years ago, even though it's kind of cheesy looking. The power disc brake unit was out of a Monte Carlo that I pulled out of pick-apart 30 years ago. I forgot to mention that earlier. And going back to the Dana 44 front axle, this is actually out of a Jeep Wagoneer. Not sure what year it was, but I got that on Recycler Classified Ads about 25 years ago and installed that. And went over to Four Wheel Parts Wholesalers, got some Jeep leaf spring brackets made, because they actually almost protruded past the front of the frame. So I had to do some crazy welding here to brace that up really good. And originally I had a Saginaw power steering unit from the Chevy mounted on the frame here, so that's why you see all of this stuff kind of crooked looking. And the frame was actually twisting from the unit, the power steering unit, to the point where it started cracking. So I added all this bracing, and this was all covered up by some aluminum in the original bumper, so you couldn't see it, even though it's kind of on a weird angle. It wasn't noticeable, but it does the job. It holds the frame straight and keeps it in line. And you know, I welded these things back in, so I think it's going to be strong enough to, you know, be a weekend warrior, but not going to do too much with it as far as off-roading, because again, it is a fairly fatigued frame at this point. Just going to be kind of a head turner. What I'm working on now is I took the Ranger rack and pinion hose that I purchased from one of the local auto parts stores, that I need to convert to the GM Chevy power steering pump. So right here at this point, I went down to a shop and had them make me a new custom hose. This 6-inch hose right here is attaches to the Ford Ranger pump hose by way of a compression fitting right here. I cut the rest of the hose off and added the compression fitting with this new piece of hose, and this portion here adapts to the Chevy power steering pump. Now what I'm hearing is the Chevy power steering pump, or GM power steering pump, will have too much pressure to work the rack and pinion of the Ford Ranger, so I have to get a valve, a relief or a pressure valve that'll reduce the pressure here at the pump side as it pushes towards the rack and pinion. I've got that on order. It should be here in a couple days. And once I get that in, I'll get this hose installed, and my rack and pinion should be finished up. And there's about the best shot I can give you of the vehicle now, as it's kind of sitting in the garage next to my other project that I don't have time to do either. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting this thing running. The motor hasn't been fired in 8 years since we put the cam in and dropped it in the frame. And I got the fan belts on the last few days. I'm going to pull the distributor out, prime the motor, and get the oil moving through the galleyways. And then probably within the next 2 weeks, we will attempt to start the motor, break in the cam that's been sitting for so long. And once I know everything's working and going together, or running properly, then I'll start putting the fenders back on and getting the truck body back into alignment, and then get it ready for the paint shop. So I think I'll stop there, and I'll come back and add some more later as progress continues. Thanks for watching.